This video is on Chapter 18, Statistics, Lesson Number 1, Samples and Surveys. In your notes here, it talks about sampling. A population is all the members of a set. A sample is a part of a population. And then the last bullet here says, if you determine a sample carefully, the statistics for the sample can be used to make general conclusions about the larger population. Below that, we have the sampling types and methods. So again, this is just the sampling part. For a convenience sample, you want to select any members of the population who are conveniently and readily available. For a self-selected sample, select only members of the population who volunteer for the sample. For a systematic sample, you order the population in some way and then select from it at regular intervals. In a random sample, all members of a population are equally likely to be chosen. A sample has a bias when a part of a population is overrepresented or underrepresented. A bias is a systematic error introduced by the sampling method. So again, the vocabulary here is talking about different types of sampling methods. So for convenience, it's all about easy. I'm going to conduct a survey, maybe I'm going to pick one spot and I'm not going to go anywhere else. Self-selected sample are those where you are asked to complete a survey, like if you go through a line at Kroger maybe, and on the bottom of the receipt, they ask you to complete a survey. That would be self-selected. Systematic, there is at regular intervals. So like every 10th person is questioned, every 50th person is questioned, that kind of thing. Random is what you are hoping for in order for your data to actually be able to be used to make general conclusions about the whole population. Otherwise, you could be introducing some bias, which is not a good thing. So let's look at this first example. A newspaper wants to find out what percent of the city population favors a property tax increase to raise money for local parks. What is the sampling method used for each situation? And then does the sample have a bias? Explain. So part A says a newspaper article on the tax increase invites readers to express their opinion on the newspaper website. So if you go back to these different sampling types and methods, because they are inviting readers to express their opinions, that would be an example of a self-selected sample. So self-selected sample. The next part of this asks us, does the sample have a bias? Explain. In this situation, remember that bias means that one group is overrepresented while another group is underrepresented. So for a newspaper article asking readers to express their opinion on the newspaper website, in my opinion, would definitely introduce some bias here. Because number one, only the people that are reading the newspaper are going to respond to the survey. So you representing only those that are reading the newspaper, and you are underrepresenting those that don't read the newspaper. So you would fill in your answer there based on that if you think of some other type of bias. But I'm just going to quickly say overrepresents the newspaper readers and underrepresent those not reading. Okay. The part B says a reporter interviews people leaving the city's largest park. So interviewing people that are leaving the park would be an example. If you go back to the vocabulary words here, that would be a convenience sample. They're going to one place. They are interviewing people as they leave the park. So then the question becomes, does this sample have bias? I think that it definitely has bias. You are overrepresenting, you are only representing the people that are attending the park, and you are not representing anybody else. So in order for a study to not have bias, remember it needs to be random and all parts of your population need to be represented. So for part B, you are only representing people who visit the park. And you have underrepresented everybody else. Moving on to part C, a survey service calls every 50th listing from the local phone book. So because it's doing every 50th person or every 50th listing, that's an example of systematic. Now, is there bias? I don't feel like there is a lot of bias here. If there is any, it would be because a lot of people are not listed in the phone book. Now, it's really not a thing in this day and age. You don't see phone books much anymore. Everybody is pretty much online. There's not a lot of bias here. I wouldn't say that there's probably any. Maybe a little, but not enough to mention. All right, let's move on to the next section, which is the study methods. So we've got, in an observational study, you measure or observe members of a sample in such a way that they are not affected by the study. So you're watching them. That is it. You are not interacting. In a controlled experiment, you divide the sample into two groups to impose a treatment on one group but not the other control group. Then you compare the effect on the treated group to the control group. The main thing here with your controlled experiment is that the group, the sample that you're starting with is divided into two separate groups. And then one is called the control group, the other one is called the treated group. In a survey, you ask every member of the sample a set of questions. So for this next example, it says which type of study method is described in each situation. Should the sample statistics be used to make a general conclusion about the population? A says researchers randomly choose two groups from 10 volunteers. Over a period of 8 weeks, one group eats ice cream before going to sleep and the other does not. Volunteers wear monitoring devices while sleeping, and researchers record dream activity. So which study method would that be? And again, with your experiment, controlled experiment, you got two different groups. So this is an example of a controlled experiment. Should the sample statistics be used to make a general conclusion about the population? No. I don't think that we should make any conclusions here about the data that is collected for this reason, for a couple of reasons actually. Number one, your sample is too small. Okay. And that's going to mean that, your data, that whatever you collect is going to be unreliable. Let's move on to part B. Students in a science class record the height of bean plants as they grow. You record the bean plant as it grows. So you're just watching, observing, recording data. This is your observational And then can we use our data to make conclusions about the population? I think so. In this instance, you're recording data. You're recording the height of bean plants as they grow. The statistics might provide a general conclusion. Obviously, most of you have been in science classes, and you know that when you are doing a study like this, you're recording things like the amount of daylight, the kind of soil, the temperature, things like that. But if we're just watching and we're recording the height of bean plants, I don't feel like there's anything here that would adversely affect that data. So in answering the question, should the sample statistics be used to make a general conclusion about the population? I say yes. The data or the stats may actually provide some conclusions. Could there be a small opportunity for that to be unreliable? I think that the chances are small. Last one here, part C, student council members ask every 10th student in the lunch line if they like the cafeteria food. So you are asking people in the cafeteria line if they like the cafeteria food. So this is going to be a survey. And yes, if you were thinking systematic, that would be the type of survey that it is, or the type of study method. Is the data provided here reliable? I don't think so. I think this is a definite no. You are surveying people in the cafeteria. They're already in the lunch line, and you are asking them about the cafeteria food. I don't feel like the results are going to be very reliable. The people in line are more likely to have a favorable opinion of the food. And what that means, what that leaves us to conclude here is that those people that are not in line are obviously not going to be favorable about the food. Okay, so there's a lot of vocabulary included in this lesson. Please make sure that you take some time to go back and look at and study all of the vocabulary.